Hello, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. I have missed you all. I have missed being in my public house, but I was in a wonderful public house in Swindon. I forget the name, which sold only local ales. Perhaps if someone's watching, then they can, who is from Swindon, then they can work out which one it is. But it's quite in the centre, only local ales, and also a Brazilian restaurant, Brazilian, Charlie, where they bring the meat to you on a skewer and carve it off continuously in different kinds of meat, even chicken hearts. So you should, as a half Brazilian man, I think you should go there.
What you're referring to is what we in Brazil call a churrascaria, which is a barbecue house, which is basically a big grill to just throw big slabs of dead mammal onto, and also avian. You throw your bird on it. And what I think's great about the chicken heart is I like my chicken heart quite crispy, whereas some Brazilians like them a bit chewy. It's a tough heart muscle. But the best thing is, like, you can get a big spit with like 30 chicken hearts on it, and you imagine 30 sentiences gave their lives from my one small plate as a starter. 30 chicken heart. That's 30 individual chickens.
Well, come on, it's not just, they were also bringing around the chicken. I mean, the chicken breast and the chicken leg and stuff. So I don't think it was just the heart. I mean, that would be wasteful.
Yeah. No. They try and fob you off. I'm quite a fan of the heart because it's quite a kind of weird thing to eat, and I think it's quite a funny. It's a strong flavor, but they try and fob you off with the kind of garlic breads and the kind of sausage and that cheap shit. Whereas you want the sirloin and the,
you want the best stuff. Straight. All right, anyway, so cheers, everybody. Cheers, Charlie.
Hello. Cheers.
Cheers, Hogan Gurgan, Capis. Cheers, Michael. Cheers, Jonas. My brother likes chicken brains, he says. Cheers, Shibili Ayuba. Cheers, Fresh Toast. Whatever his name is. Yes, Fresh Toast, yes. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, resident poet of Jolly Heretic. Hogan Gurgan, Capis, Saludo, Prost, Proust, a Skoll, a Slanger, Slangervar. And welcome, Voivaton, Slanger, Capis. And welcome to the Jolly Heretic. We are, of course, online public house. We meet on Mondays at 7 p.m. UK time, currently 3 p.m. New York, in which we discuss base science and base research. It's increasingly expanded from our woke joke universities, and also increasingly simply what's going on in our media that dares to say that we're all conspiracy theorists despite telling us obvious lies, as we discovered 2 weeks ago with Charlie's revelation about Her Majesty, God rest her soul. So cheers, everybody. And so if you have any questions, then you can, of course, send them in on the old Entropy. The link is pinned in the description as well, or on YouTube or on Odyssey. Hello, people on Odyssey, on the Spit and Sawdust Bar on Odyssey. How are you doing? Oh, I should sign into the old Entropy. Bugger, I forgot to do that. I'll just sign to the old Entropy. Yes, okay, go live. Just turn the microphone off. Good, I've done that. Yes, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. Now, I was told by someone commented on one of my videos with regard to what we discussed 2 weeks ago, Charlie. They said, I hope we're going to receive an apology from you for spreading nonsense conspiracy theories. That's what I was told.
I've been watching on Twitter and on the news the kind of cascade of celebrities coming out and bowing down to the royal family and offering, prostrating themselves, offering the apology to the bloodline, for daring to make a joke about it. And it is hilarious to see, like, even Owen Jones, chief lefty, chief communist, chief, he's the top, he's the kind of LGBT king of Britain, and the lefties kind of bow down and apologize for conspiring about how the publicly funded royal poodle bloodline breeding tourist bringing experiment is going. And I'd just like to say that it ties in with what I've been talking about on my channel a lot, Ed, over the last couple of years, is a rise in not only do I notice around England crashes every morning, gridlocked, all motorways, crashes on every motorway. It didn't used to be like this. We've got like cognitive decline all across the board. I've been preparing a kind of like dossier of like people's reaction times collapsing. There's like smartphone footage out there of people not being able to react. And alongside this as well, just in the last 4 years since 2020, doctors are now warning about that there is a kind of evidence for a rise in turbo cancers. And Princess Catherine, Princess Kate, has now revealed on a very nice park bench that she is suffering from the big C. And me as Big Charlie, I just want to say that it's too late for me to apologize. It's too late because I enjoy conspiring about publicly funded bodies. I mean, it's a part of a good British tradition.
I don't think it's unreasonable when you told me, and this is now widely acknowledged, I talked to some other sort of people that are quite well connected, and they said the same thing. They all knew that she died in the night, and she died of blood cancer. And that this is, this has just been suppressed. So I don't think it's unreasonable with the royal family when we absolutely know that they have suppressed, they've lied about the cause of death, they've lied about the time of death. I mean, actually, the palace has done that, and they've lied about the newspapers have completely covered up this affair, which we know is true. Then I don't think it's that unreasonable to start suspecting something mendacious is happening. I mean, that's not being tinfoil hatted. That's not like doubting, well, whatever conspiracy I say, someone will say, "Oh, you believe in the moon landing?" So, I mean, that's not like doubting. I don't know. I can't think of any conspiracy, any example that someone's not going to say that I'm. But you know what I mean. It's not like doubting that example that I can't think of. So I mean, I think it's reasonable to speculate that there was something going on, and there was something going on. I mean, they were suppressing the truth. They'd known since the day of the funeral of this Greek prince or whatever it was that she had cancer, and they'd taken all that time to reveal what the problem was. So. There was a conspiracy side.
Like, within the kind of hallowed grounds of the royal palaces and of these ancient traditions of, breeding blue-blooded people who are a little bit inbred and a little bit shaggy. They're very shaggy. They like to shag around. I think, things came to an interesting head with Oliver Cromwell, and I've been reminiscing a lot in graveyards about that century, the 1600s. And I think in these palaces, they do believe that they want to still maintain a little bit of their privacy. Like, this is divine, amazing ground that you cannot look into yet. And so they want to suppress it as a way almost to kind of satisfy their own egos that they still matter, in the modern age, in the new woke LGBT, beautiful, like diverse modern age, and
satisfy the desire for a certain amount of magic. There has to be the magic there. There has to be
the mystery. Like, it's tied into theology and Christianity and Jesus, and they want to make sure that they maintain that mystery, because that, I think this is also, we have to understand. Here we are talking about it. It's certainly bringing a lot more attention to the royal family, both in this country and internationally. And, imagine if there are people, descendants of Edward Bernays shaking hands right now saying, "Jolly good job. Like, look at the amount of clicks on the royal family and the news stories." So, like, I don't think it's that. I think it's just negligence and stupidity. But in terms of marketing,
we did do well though, Charlie, because I mentioned that theory that I presented a number of possible theories, and I presented that particular theory, and then someone picked it up on TikTok with millions of followers, and then before long I was sitting in a pub in Swindon, and someone said, "Have you heard this conspiracy theory?" And I was like, "Yes, I've heard it. My friend from university made it up," and I presented it on my show, and then the next day it was on TikTok. So everyone knew about it. So I think I was quite pleased with the way that it spread, even though it was probably wrong. But to be fair, I did caveat in my presentation of it that it was probably wrong. So I did think it was just to do with the affair. I didn't know that there would be the big C involved. But yeah, I've been reading about the doctors, and I have no clue why this rising cancer. Women are more likely to, if they're under the age of 40 or 50, sorry, they are double the likelihood of getting cancer of men.
Really?
The main thing, it evens out by the age of about 70. But basically, when younger people get cancer, it's more likely to be a woman thing, and it's more likely to be breast cancer or ovarian cancer or something like that. But there's this shocking rise, and doctors don't know the reason why, in abdominal or whatever, cancers of that whole area, rectal cancer and this sort of thing, and in particular among women, and in particular since about 2005. There's this clear rise, and it's worldwide. It's in lots and lots of Western countries. So the things that you might put it down to, who can tell? A worse and worse diet, obesity, but doctors are actually saying that it's people that come in that seem perfectly healthy, that are healthy women like Kate Middleton, who are presenting with these abdominal cancers, and they don't know why. One possibility they said is changes to the biome, which can be caused by dramatic dieting, that sort of thing. Someone's saying the pill. In the chat, I read that it could be women taking certain sort of things to stop miscarriages that involve progesterone or something, and that they've suggested that's the case. But basically, doctors don't know. They don't know. There's an alarming rise in cancer among women under 50, otherwise healthy women under 50, and they don't know what's going on. So it's a little bit frightening. And so we put this down to but they put it down to conspiracies, and they're all saying, "Oh, Mayor Cooper, I shouldn't have said that." But come on, with those photographs at the farm shop, even Boris Johnson's sister was saying that's not them. Surely it's a body double. I mean, even it seemed
strange. It was a very strange image, and people that tried to enhance it and enhance to a different person, and it was very bizarre. And also, like, to kind of go out, like, and they made a big deal about the fact that she was carrying shopping bags, despite the fact that she'd had her abdominal surgery, and she was strolling, she was walking with intent, like in a good mood. And then, like, a few days later, she's like sat on the bench, very somber, with cancer. It's like, wow. Like, wow, either it's like an incredible, like, media grabbing, attention grabbing event, or it's a bunch of idiots scrambling and doing stupid things and like getting William to play along with it, which would be hilarious if he was going along with a body double and had a friend filming from a distance with a smudgy lens on the smartphone to kind of like get it going. So, but like coming back to the cancer, Ed, like, like, do you think there's like some connection? Like there's pattern, like I once heard recently on a podcast of a philosophy that they said that randomness is just our inability to see the bigger pattern. So do you think, I'm not saying it's random, but do you think as a result of people literally shitting themselves and the kind of runs on toilet paper during COVID, that it might have had a metaphysical effect on the kind of like gut region, like through fear and like, being like in a state of panic and high stress for like 2 years, thinking they're going to die from a massive contagion?
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. But if that were the case, then presumably, because one of the things you can say with baby booms is they're quite predictable. If you get a war, you get a baby boom. And also you get more boys being born. And there's obvious evolutionary reasons for that. So First World War, there was a baby boom. Second World War, there was an even bigger baby boom. So if that were the case, then there should be rises in abdominal cancers in the wake of periods of high stress.
Yeah, I think like
like wars. And I'm not aware that that's been looked at, but I guess that could be the case. But then also
we might not have the data. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, carry on.
No, but it seems to have been going up since 2005 or something like that. So, or 2012 anyway. So that would be. It's not. I don't know that it's because of lockdown, but it's quite sudden. I mean, it's quite a sudden rise.
Be because of since around that time we all started having phones in our pockets near our abdomen. In our pockets the whole time, and you never know. I'm not saying that. Please don't sue me, telecommunications giants. I'm just speculating.
But then why would it be among women and not among men? Because women tend to not have pockets and have their phones in their handbag.
Because they're the fairer set. They're just more fragile. They just fall apart more easily.
No, they don't. Male variability hypothesis. It means that we are inherently sicker than women. We're genetically sicker than women. We're basically sort of fast life history strategists compared to women. But yet men aren't seeing a rise in or sort of. But it's young. It's something young women are doing. That's the implication. And so, what is it? The one thing that occurred to me: changes in the biome, dieting, things like that. Maybe that.
That's maybe something you should study if penises have become toxic. In the last few years, maybe something about the act of lovemaking with a penis is doing bad things to the woman. You never know.
Well, to her gut biome, to her.
you never know, man. Like you never know.
You're trying
like,
to raise it. You're trying to say that since 2012, there's been like a rise in back sex, and that has caused these abdominal cancers. Is that what? And oral
yeah,
sex.
like big booties have become very like popular, like the searches for it, and like the kind of, remember when we were in like the early 2000s, it was all about skinny women, size 0, super tight Shakira, like slim supermodels, and then that's become bigger and bigger and bigger, and with the obsession of the rear end. So I'm saying there's maybe a correlation between bum cancer and anal sex. That's maybe
Right, that's one. But also, like a lot of women, they do these exercises these days to make their asses bigger, don't they? They make their asses more muscular,
Yeah.
deliberately, squat thrusts or whatever. So I don't know, but I mean, the boys, doctors do not know the reason why. But we're told not to doubt these. We're told, oh God, how, you've been so terrible for engaging in talk of conspiracies, but yet it's perfectly acceptable to engage to try to argue, as I was watching on Sky News earlier, that what happened in Moscow, oh, that's a false flag operation. So 130 people killed, and they're saying that, oh, basically Putin knew this was going to happen and he let it happen. And the degree to which that's acceptable with Russia, but not with other things like Cape Middleton or whatever, is ridiculous. It took the soldiers were 2 miles away, but it took them an hour and a half to get to the theatre, by which time they managed to set fire to the roof. Whereas if you go out in Russia and you so much as stand there with a blank piece of paper, the police are immediately there to drag you away. So this seems a bit strange. And then they catch them all really quickly. This seems a bit strange. And then force one of them to eat his own ear.
Yeah. Oh, Ed, I've been following the story very closely. For the viewers who are maybe listening to us in the background, we're talking about the Moscow concert attack a couple of days ago. 133 people machine gun dead. 4 Tajik men have been captured. And what Ed is referring to, how strange, like 4 men with what looked like quite faulty weapons, very sparky machine guns, using like, people were speculating online, are they using really bad ammunition, like old stock, like crappy, like I'd never seen AK-47 spark so much. It was like a fireworks display. And so they walked around the main concert hall, one of the big modern ones in the center of Moscow, for 2 hours, unchallenged, not even by a cop shooting at them, not even by special forces, for 2 hours. It's almost as if, Ed, do you think there is a chance that the Russians thought that there was maybe 100 of them in there, 100 terrorists, and their minds, got overexcited, and they, like, what do you think?
I've no idea. How could it possibly? I mean, then, to be fair, as the conspiracy theorists will argue, when was it? 2002 or something like that? Or 2004? I forget when it was. When Putin was up for election, then magically these blocks of flats were bombed, and it's widely accepted that was a false flag operation. That Putin did that so that he could go to war in Chechnya and whatever, and had an excuse for that, and to help his election campaign. So if that seems to be generally accepted that he did that. So you could, the argument is he needs to have a reason to ramp up the military recruitment and bring in full conscription in Russia, and also to sort of present this to the Russians now that, oh, your homeland's under attack. Your homeland is under attack. Therefore, we must all unite and fight off those that want to destroy us.
It's interesting. Yeah, I remember the investigations into the apartment bombings to blame on Chechnya. I remember that, and like seeing even footage, I think secret footage of Russian police telling people to shut the fuck up in apartments and not ask questions. But so do you think? So the FSB, or Russian secret, and like people connected to Putin, got 4 village idiots from Tajikistan, pumped them full of cocaine, and like kind of Quran verses, gave them AK-47s, and sent them into a concert hall, and then hunted them down in the forest.
I think it's more likely, or at least this is what the Western sources are arguing. The Western analysts are saying that they knew this was going to happen. They had intelligence this was going to happen, and they thought they'd just let it happen as an excuse to achieve
Well,
what they wanted to.
that it doesn't make sense though with that theory for me, because it makes Putin look weak and like vulnerable and old, and like concert halls right in the heart, and then being able to shoot that many people without the security forces being able to stop it, and this
He's
on
not in
top of that.
control. Yeah, that's the other angle. That's why
And the Prigozhin getting so close to Moscow with Wagner. And you know how they stopped Prigozhin? They had to put a gun to his family's head in Moscow and say, turn around or we'll kill all your family in Moscow. And that's why he stopped.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought
it was they got to his family very quickly, the Russian secret services, and that's the only reason why he turned around. And then they obviously got rid of him later. But I think it's more of just a fucking shit show of stupid people, and like people just being in positions of intelligence just because of they're in the boys network in Russia. They don't have a clue what they're really doing. They messed up the invasion of Ukraine, and now they're messing up this. And I reckon it was probably a bunch of guys from Tajikistan who are like village idiots sent by some clever ISIS guys, pumped them full of drugs and full of Quran verses, and sent them on their way to go do what they're doing. I don't think it was.
I mean, it does seem amazing that they could get within 120 kilometers or miles, I forget which it is, of Moscow, unchallenged. I mean, that does seem extraordinary. That there's something very disorganized about the security forces in Moscow,
which is why Putin goes on about his nuclear weapons all the time, because it's all he's got.
Which is which is consistent with them taking an hour and a half to get themselves to organize when something's actually happening, when something's actually going on, rather than get on with it. So but anyway, it's okay to talk about conspiracies when it comes to Putin. Obviously, that's okay. Yeah. But as we have learned, when it comes to Kate, that is not okay. Suddenly we all have to be terribly ashamed of ourselves, and I manipulated. And I say I don't think the idea that it's a deep fake. I don't think so. I just think that it's just so shocking and so appalling that it evoked a very stupid reaction, which was to try and make things.
It's crazy, like how cancer is affecting both the king and then the future king's wife at the same time. This is unprecedented. I've never had and this is it's a rot within the core of the very royal leadership, and it's weird. Like it is strange having.
Well, I suppose one of the reasons why it's unprecedented is because cancer is a relatively new thing to die of, isn't it? I mean, I read that. There was a case in it was a doctor. He wrote, in 1869, he was training to be a doctor, and he was shown a cadaver, I don't know, Edinburgh University or something, and he was shown a cadaver, and it had lung cancer. And the teacher said to him, the lecturer said to him, this lung cancer is a very rare example of a very rare disease, and you are likely to go through your entire medical career without ever coming across it again.
Wow.
And then by 1969, everyone's bloody dying of cancer and of lung cancer and
isn't it so just what happens when you add an extra 10 or so years to the average life expectancy? People get into the age where they get the cancers, don't you think?
Well, there's that, but no, that's not quite true, because life expectancy went down. So life expectancy among the mid-Victorians was higher than life expectancy among the late Victorians. It was changes in lifestyle, tinned food, less exercise, eating the non-healthy parts of the meat rather than the healthy parts of the meat, less vegetables, less fruit, all this sort of stuff. Seems to have more sedentary lifestyle seems to have led to the rise in strokes, cancer, and heart attacks, which is what everybody dies of these days: strokes, cancer, heart attacks. And in Victorian times, you wouldn't die of those things. It was very, very rare to die of those things. You'd die of like infection. That's what you die of. Nobody died of strokes, cancer, heart attacks.
Ed, I want to ask you. So, if you could live pretty healthy into a healthy old age, what age do you think you'd be where you've had enough? 90, 95, 100? Like, when do you think you'd start to get bored of it? Like, if you were still healthy, I
think if you, I knew this woman, and she was a distant relative of mine, third cousin once removed, and she died aged. I don't think, was it 97? And she didn't want to die. I mean, she was looking forward to being 100. She didn't want to leave the party, but she was a fun, outgoing person with lots of friends and lots of interested in life and enjoyed things and so on. So that was her. Whereas I suppose if you're a miserable old bugger and then you just think, oh, I've had enough. I think the main thing that makes them want to have enough is if they're not well.
Yeah.
If life's a bugger, but if you're enjoying yourself, then I suppose.
Yeah, like as someone who grew up in the 80s and 90s with David Attenborough documentaries, my first DVD box set I purchased was Life in the Freezer by David Attenborough. I look forward to the David Attenborough pumped full of stem cells presenting for his 100th birthday, like the new Gorilla BBC show. And so it's gonna I was gonna do a joke about the gorillas ripping David Attenborough to pieces on his 100th birthday.
It is amazing to think that David Attenborough and Desmond Morris, and if you're American, these people they present nature documentaries and things, and they're both still alive. Desmond Morris, David Attenborough, and they're well into their 90s.
There's footage of David Attenborough as a grown man, like in his 20s or 30s and 1950s, playing with gorillas and lions, and it's incredible.
And Jane Goodall's still alive, and she's about 95. So
the Gorillas in the Mist lady, the gorilla botherer, she's still going.
She's
Was she not shot by poachers and killed by poachers back in the 70s?
Nah, you're thinking of an elephant of some kind.
No. We've had a Mandela effect.
Jane Goodall is a human woman, and Jane
Goodall got murdered by poachers.
No, you're thinking of some lion.
No, I know the long-haired, gray-haired American lady that liked to bother the gorillas. She got
she
killed
wasn't
by
American.
poachers.
No, she was English.
She English. Oh, right, an
Jane
American
Goodall,
one got killed by poachers. Okay, sorry.
And no, she wasn't. No, I don't know. They're saying Diane Fossey. I don't know, or Diane Fossey. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one. The other thing that's happening here in the UK, I don't know what percentage you're watching from the UK, is I don't know. I mean, there's going to be an election in England before the end of the year, and I don't know what to do because I was going to vote for the Reform Party. Obviously, I had enough of the Conservative Party. 14 years of Conservative rule. They're traitors. They bring in Brexit. They first of all, they weren't going to even do the Brexit, despite the fact that people voted for it. There was all that sodding about. And secondly, when they do bring in Brexit, and they know that everyone has voted for less immigration, they then just bring in more immigration, but from outside Europe, which is taking the piss. I mean, that's the one thing people did. The one thing they want is no immigration. That's what they want, zero immigration. And that's what they want. And so then start bringing in, we're going to bring in more Indians, which is absolutely crazy. So no reason to vote Conservative, obviously. But then I was going to vote for, I don't live in the UK, Mr. Davis, no, but I can vote there. And as an expat. And so then I was going to vote for Reform Party. And then even the Reform Party take their advice from the communist anti-freedom mutant rights organization Hope Not Hate. Yeah, and that little mutant Nick Lowell's, and they say, you're Bo of the Lotus Eaters has said that Enoch Powell is good, and so or something like that, and therefore they immediately remove him as a candidate for Swindon South.
Yeah. It's funny, like with this reform thing, like I've been watching that closely as well, and just how quickly they cucked, and like as you said in your Twitter post a couple of days ago, Ed, like how they didn't stand by their own man, and how quickly they took the advice of the commies and the lefties about this. And I thought the very party Reform was set up to be against that, and here they are bowing down to those very values that they said that they were against.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how can you vote for what kind of populist right-wing party that's anti-woke and that's in favor of free speech says, our candidate said some slightly spicy things on Twitter or wherever we said them a very long time ago that have been dug up via fence archaeology by the nastiest, most anti-freedom, most woke people in the country. So we will remove him as candidate. I was there in the office when it happened. They didn't even ring him. They didn't even contact him. They just suddenly he found that there was no longer a Reform candidate for Swindon South.
It's unbelievable, Ed. Like this is a kind of weird, at once Brave New World, but also 1984 world where, like me, myself, and you, like as people who make a living talking about things and commenting on things, having to police your own voice in case you commit a kind of speech crime, a thought crime, and then you get kicked out of the people that were meant to support you.
You even get problems in pubs. So, as I've said to you before, I was kicked out of a pub for basically talking about female sexual hypergamy. And then I was in a place in Swindon, and I was talking to a Jamaican guy about my Jamaican colleague Lipton Matthews, who I think I'll have on next week. Idea of black privilege. This is the idea that he's black, so everybody famous wants to be interviewed by him because he's black. So basically, he has black privilege. And I was talking to a Jamaican about this, and the Jamaican thought this was fascinating and was asking more.
Yeah.
And then my friend reached out and said, Ed, some of the people are offended by what you're saying.
Oh my
words
God.
I was like, what? And apparently they were offended by use of the term black privilege. And,
wow.
and I was asked not to. And then there were two black people in the bar, this Jamaican and a Ghanaian, and they both said, well, we're not offended by it, but these white women are offended.
What's beautiful about that moment, Ed, you were arguing that he may have had a black privilege because it's very fashionable and also very right on and very woke and moral to obviously promote, those people in advertising and TV shows, which everyone, it's an open secret. And the very fact that you're pointing this out, the white defenders came in to enforce came to enforce his black privilege against you as a thought crime white man that was there questioning his black privilege.
And he wasn't even, he just thought it was interesting. He
probably loved it. He thought, wow, like a guy having an open and honest conversation with me, and then these like white knights here policing the very chat.
But the way I turned, so these are women, right? So they're very social. I mean, on average, very socially conformist and all this kind of thing. So they were offended on his behalf and all this. But the way I turned it around brilliantly was to accuse them of being bullies. Because they've imbibed this idea that at school that the worst thing you can be is a bully. So I said, it's just like 1985 with people calling me spastic and whatever. It's just like that. And then that really worked. And then they sort of backed down and were all nice, and then we were friends in the end. But one of them did not like being accused of being a bully to the extent that she started crying and ran away. So it's my friend was concerned we'd be chucked out of the bar, but I thought that by calling them bullies, by turning that one on, it would. And so always go for that, chaps. If they accuse you of being offensive or whatever, just say bully, and also carry around with you one of those things like the Joker. In the film The Joker, and he starts laughing, and there's this black woman that's upset, and he hands a little card saying, saying I start laughing randomly, it doesn't reflect how I feel. Carry around a little card saying, I have autism, I will say empirically accurate things.
That's brilliant.
Please turn over, please return this card.
And like a little NHS logo on, like NHS like outpatients like logo on it, and and then you could get away with anything. Oh, it's okay. He's a victim. It's okay. He's okay. He's been verified. It's okay. He's fine.
Sanctified victim. It's okay. He's a victim. It's like it's a girl I know. And parents would have problems with letting her be friends with their daughters because she's badly behaved or whatever. Then suddenly, once she was legally autistic, then they all want to be a friend because they can say, "Oh, my daughter. Oh, she's friends with someone on the spectrum. Oh, she's a good girl. Oh, isn't she a good girl?" So it's like that. It's inverse privilege.
And you know what? I've got one of my friends, and also he's a fellow YouTuber. He goes by the name Auditing Britain. I think he's like Lebanese or Syrian, and I think he's about the same height as me. But in his videos, I think he has Arab privilege with British police. Whereas for myself, for like other like British like streamers, you'll get like kind of told to fuck off and like kind of behave yourself, but he gets treated sometimes with kids gloves, I think, because he has that kind of like Lebanese privilege here in the UK.
I think he does. I think you can definitely get away with more. I mean, I find in Finland that there's a degree to which I might have English privilege, because they're very, very sensitive about what foreigners think of them. And they don't like the idea of upsetting an English person. And often, if I insist on speaking in English, they don't like the idea of seeming bad at English. So they'll just back down. So I've had that. The most extreme example, it wouldn't happen anymore because people speak English better. But it was like 19 years ago. My wife managed to accidentally scratch, I don't know how she did it, a sports car that was parked next to our car. So obviously the guy had a sports car, so obviously he was a twat, and he rang the police, and insisted on recompense or whatever for what my wife had done. So what I did was I answered the phone, and I answered her phone again and again and again. And of course, the police did not speak English. Nobody, no policeman in those days. And so eventually they just gave up.
Wow.
But now that wouldn't happen now because those people are retired and have died of alcoholism. But it was that was a specific time period 19 years ago where you had English privilege here, to the extent that I knew a Finnish guy who speaks very good English, and he would insist on ordering in restaurants in English because it was quite clear that you got better service if they thought you were a certain kind of international foreigner than if you spoke in Finnish. So there is some privilege there, but in England I have no privilege. I guess the one useful thing that I do have in England, if I'm with a Finnish person, is that you have a secret code language that nobody can understand. So you can have based conversations. Someone's mentioning Detroit. Finnish was useful in Detroit. So I was in some quite dodgy places, and so me and my cameraman, who was a Finn, would go into Finnish to negotiate, what we should do now. So that is definitely a useful thing to do. Now there was something else we were going to talk about. What was it now? Cases of Russia. Oh yes, you're saying that the cracky issue has. You mentioned the issue of the crack. Yeah,
there's a kind of wave. Like there was the last golden age in Manchester for the cracky uprising was August 2022, and now in March 2024. I've had to kick 3 crackies just this week in 3 separate videos. It's like every time I go out now, there's like crazy people coming for me, jumping at me, like trying to intimidate me, and it makes for excellent viewing. But it's you have to ride this wave very, very carefully because it's very stabby out there. Very people throwing glass bottles. It's wild, and the police. There's like a couple of police officers in the city center, but it's gone wild out there. I don't know what it is, if it's a new strain of drug or if people are not giving change to the homeless, so they're getting angry. But what I see now, Ed, like what I saw in Amsterdam just a few months ago, is there's now a mass amount of young Arab guys just hanging out in Piccadilly Gardens, doing absolutely nothing, just smoking cigarettes, just watching the world go by, all day. 9 to 5 every day, young Arab men. I don't know if they're staying in the nearby.
When I was in Swindon, there was a Holiday Inn right by the railway station in the centre of Swindon. I should be doing. I've made a Swindon documentary, by the way, chat, which will be coming out at some point. That hotel is not a hotel, or until recently, it wasn't a hotel where you could go there and get a room. It was a tower, huge hotel, and every room was given over to boat people. Every single room, and even now they've apparently they've moved them because there was so much local animus. But even so, it's still, you can't go and stay there. And Swindon seems to have, Swindon for our American viewers is in southwest England. Not a particularly pleasant town. They destroyed lots of the nice buildings after the war because that's what left-wing people do. But there is an old Swindon that's nice. It's a few streets that have been preserved. Home of the NHS, massive train factory was there. Quite interesting history. But they've all, within about a couple of years, it's gone from being really substantially white to all of the whites moving out to the suburbs and the centre taking their money with them. With the consequence that the center of town, you've never seen anything like it. It's just shop after shop after shop that is closed down. And that bald and bankrupt thing where famously he went to some town in the north of England, Headington or something like this, Headley or something. And they put fake windows and fake doors on the brickwork. Right. They've done that. So all the shops that have been closed down so that you can't look in and see the decrepit
decay
inside the window. They've put a big sticker on the window. It says something like, Swindon.com, the best of Swindon, and then images from Super Mario Brothers and weird shit like this, just drawing attention. And it's shop after shop after shop. There's a whole inside and outside mall. There's hardly any functioning shops. It's just dead. And that's because this used to be Marks and Spencer's, shut down. This used to be McDonald's, and shut down because the people that had money have left, and what's left is people from all over the place. It's not even like one culture, like where you can do something. Like at least in somewhere awful like Hounslow, most people are Hindu.
Yeah.
So
Well,
or even Whitechapel, where I was the other day.
you know, in the 80s, I hope you watched Escape from New York, you know, Snake Plissken, where they put a big wall around the city center of New York and then all the crackheads live in there. We're going to have to kind of re-wall. You know, York and Chester are pretty much already walled, but we're going to have to re-wall all the cities again with all the crackheads and all the young Arab men who want to cause trouble and everything. Into a kind of big like city center, and it'll be like Escape from Manchester, you know, with Charlie, Escape from Liverpool.
It used to be that you couldn't just enter a city. Cities had walls with gates. Hence,
Yeah.
place names had gate at the end, and the city gates would be closed at night. And you get into the city by a certain time, and they would shut the gate, and they would open it in the morning. You couldn't just go into a city; it was shut. So maybe we'll have to do that. But you're shutting. Yeah, Chester, Southampton has got a bit of wall left, but a lot of it was bombed in the war. Winchester has a bit of wall left, but in most cases, we're going to have to rebuild those walls.
Like every Saturday now, they've got these massive, even in Manchester just a couple of days ago, massive 1,000 strong still. Like this is 30 weeks in, pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas people going crazy, and like the whole city center has to shut down whilst the kind of procession comes through. All the shops just have to stop for a little bit as they come, and it's just. I think I support the kind of like re-walling of every city in England and Britain to kind of withhold all the problems and get the urban decay to not kind of infest the suburbs and the kind of countryside. I think we can contain it, Ed. It'll be like World War Z, you know, but in reverse. Instead of keeping the zombies out, it'll be keeping the zombies in.
Like it'll be like there was that town, that village in Derbyshire.
Derby.
No, but there was during the plague, in the plague in 1665, there was this village in Derbyshire so the plague was in London mainly, but because I don't know a carpet or something was sent north to Derbyshire. It's called Eyam. The plague entered this village, and so then they quarantined the village for a year or something, and they would ride up to put food for the villagers, and then they'd give some money soaked in vinegar to pay for it. And it meant that these people, when they died, obviously they had far more food in their bellies than they've had in their normal lives, you know. And then at the end, they de-quarantined the village, and the survivors came out. Eyam in Derbyshire. Eyam. Someone saying Eyam is isolated still. Yeah, Eyam. Okay, Eyam. So that's what they did. So we'd have to do something like that. Just quarantine. That's just cut off the city. Leave food for them. So if they're not fed, that's their fault.
Alongside, once we kind of quarantine the zombies in every major city in the Western world, then we can have a kind of limited nuclear exchange with Russia to kind of get rid of the and then we could return to the demographics of 1895, you know, with the cities on that, and we could start again, and all that brutalist architecture and all that modernism all gone, all the woke energy evaporated, all the kind of like, you know, all the zombie infestation. At some point the infected will have to be cleared, so, you know, get rid of the zombies.
I think so. I think this is the way. This is absolutely the way forward, and just wall them in and just leave it. Just leave it. We need to take a much more kind of President Bukele attitude. I discovered the interesting thing about him. I didn't know this, that he's Palestinian. I didn't know that. The President Bukele of El Salvador, his father is an imam. And the family are Christian Palestinians. Before
I was about to say, Christian Palestinians. There's still a few of the old boys from Bethlehem still left over.
So you've got the elite. I think was it Palestinian or Lebanese? I think it was Lebanese. Anyway, one or the other. But they were elite. They were able to pay the jizya, and so stay Christian. And then they go into a foreign country and take it over and do good stuff for it. Like Jerry Rawlings in Ghana, he was half Scottish. And the bloke that used to run Peru, Fujimori.
Japanese bloke.
So it seems to be getting a foreign leader. Except in our case, we have a foreign leader and he's done nothing. It's just made things worse. But often it does work. So I'm about halfway through. So those of you, the Jolly Heretic, hello, hello. Well, a bit more than that. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Jolly Heretic. We are an online public house. Meets on Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. No, Mondays actually, 7 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. New York. They're normally 2 p.m. New York, but they put their clocks forward in a funny way in America, in which we discuss based science and stuff that is generally expounded from our woke joke universities and try and get behind what's really going on. So if you have any questions then on those issues, then do send them in on YouTube or on Entropy or on Odyssey, and I will research them in some detail, and you will receive a question today if I can answer today, or next Monday if I can't. If you would like to support the channel, you can do so by please subscribe here, subscribe with Odyssey. It helps us violently if you do that. Please subscribe, and also subscribe on my Substack, jollyheretic.com, where I put research videos I daren't put on YouTube, and where you can support me if you like what I do for as little as the price of a pint of beer a month. Link is in the description. You can also purchase Jolly Heretic merchandise, sign up for my course at Decay University, support me on Subscribestar, which goes we can chat and on Skype or whatever and be like twins, damn it. And you can of course purchase my books, all of which are available on the old Amazon. And the most recent one, which I think is a kind of a fun. Oh, is it upstairs? I thought I had it down here. Oh well. I think it's a kind of a fun introduction. Oh, that's upstairs. I thought it was here. Anyway, a fun introduction to my thinking, and that is called the Naked Classroom: The Evolutionary Psychology of Your Time at School. And that you can answer, I hope, most of the questions that you would have asked at school if science had been taught in a based way. And Charlie's channel is, of course, Charlie Beach. So please subscribe over there. If you're on my channel and you don't know about Charlie, he's on very much on the sort of the front line of the fight against wokeness, putting himself in physical danger.
Well, I try not to do too much physical. It's a very measured and very. I should put a label on my videos like these stunts take place in a kind of somewhat controlled environment. Don't try and recreate this at home. But thank you for the frontline kind of metaphor there. I think it is important. There's many people like yourself who are very good at getting the intellectual and the kind of words out, and I try and get the kind of visual as well as some of the arguments out in the street. So together, that's where we all work together to try and fight this nihilistic menace of like fake compassion and woke, which 99 times out of 100, Ed, when people say that they want to care and look after people, they want to control them and be authoritarian towards them. Like most lefties,
it must be upstairs. No, I mean it was so. Even my mum bought a copy because if I had kids, look, I've got kids. If my kids wrote books, I'd read them. But that is not the attitude of my mother. She says, "Oh, your books are really heavy going and stuff. Oh, they're so heavy going." So, but I think that with the Naked Classroom, also because she's a retired school teacher, she was interested in that, as was my dad. So it's that level. It's for the intelligent layman. Well, I suppose all my books I like to think of for that, but it's got a nice cover. But anyway, it's upstairs. I'll show it next week. Anyway, that's what Charlie does. So his fight with wokeness involves much more sort of kicking and physical violence, whereas mine is much more sort of genteel. Although, I mean, when I was in Whitechapel recently, I was sort of threatened. I mean, things can get. And when I was in America as well, I was threatened. I mean, they will threaten you.
Yeah, things can get very hairy very quickly out there, Ed. And like you see, this over here, here's my sword, my camera, the kind of photon collection device. Like literally, it's amazing how people get very angry. The fact that I collect light that shines off their skin. I think it's the act of pointing a camera at them. It maybe reminds them of a gun or like a spear or like something that would take their soul. And so, but I like to think that maybe on a more metaphysical kind of plane, the fact that you're capturing them, holding up a mirror to their behavior. No one likes that. If you want to misbehave, you don't want to be watched misbehaving. There's studies indicating that if you put people in a room and you put like an image on the wall of a face, then simply because that's there, they're less likely to steal, less likely to break the rules. Yeah.
So there you go. If we're watched, then we behave ourselves. It's argued that's one of the reasons for the development of the concept of God. You have this feeling of being watched, and so
Yeah.
you behave yourself because God's there watching you. So
Yeah.
yeah, they don't like it. They don't. I mean, I guess there's something Orwellian about being filmed all the time. Of course there is.
Yeah.
But if we were filmed all the time, then we would probably be really quite pro-social.
There you go.
Like
I
in the
also
big,
like, just on a kind of like superficial level, kind of shallow level. Sometimes the best videos are the ones where people are trying to stop the video being made at all. That's always exciting when there's people actively trying to stop the video being made as the video is being made. That's always fun because it's a kind of a battle of who's going to capture the reality of the situation and who's
and
not. So
I've seen you with the leftists, the way that they stand in front of your videos and block your videos and block you filming and all this.
yeah.
But
And in the last video as well, they're trying to tell people not to chat to me. That's another thing. Like, it's also the public shame. Oh, don't talk to him. He's too crazy. Like, don't talk to the crazy guy. Like,
yeah, I've seen. I mean, presumably you're quite well known around Manchester now. I've been doing
yes,
it for not such a long time. So
yeah,
and therefore the left, they know that you're not their friend, and if you're
yeah.
not their friend, you're their enemy. And therefore I've seen videos, in fact, where you've gone up to them. It's like, we know who you are. You're far right. We don't like you. I had that at a pub actually in Oulu, that someone recognised me, a woman, and she was with this Ethiopian or something. And we were trying to talk to him, me and this as like a fellow foreigner, like foreigner non-Finnish solidarity. And she was trying to stop me talking to her friend. And eventually, why? And she said, oh yeah, because I know who you are. Yeah, you know who you are. And you've been in the papers here, and I don't want you're racist. And so she was trying to stop me from doing so. Yeah.
It's amazing, like, Ed, the very opinions that our parents took with them every day, even into the office, are the things which get us into great trouble these days. The very things our parents would chat with, my dad and my mum, they lived in Africa, Saudi Arabia, the Caribbean, very diverse areas, and everyone just spoke openly. Like in Brazil, for example, where like my mum's family's from, I'm half Brazilian, born in Brazil. There's nicknames for people who are black that would get you automatically banned off YouTube if you called them that. It's incredible.
I was talking to my Pakistani taxi driver on the way to Heathrow Airport, very perceptive guy, and he was telling me that Anglo-Indians, that's the group in India where they're descended from English soldiers or whatever that married Muslim women. The term that they call them brown English. That's the term for them, and they call them coconuts, which means that you're brown on the outside but white on the inside. Yeah. And so that's acceptable in Pakistan to refer to them in this way. Yeah, and it's not made in a nasty way. It's not made in a nasty way. It's
Do you think like there's a thing like that once, say, like an ethnic group, it's the kind of like, if you're number one, you're not allowed to say things, but if you're number 2 or 3 in the rankings worldwide, like say if you're Indian or Chinese, you can still say disparaging things about white people, for example. But say, for example, if the Chinese became the number 1 dominant ethnicity in the world, then they wouldn't be allowed to say things about white people. Maybe is that how it works?
I don't know. Maybe I think it's just white people. It's white people have this intrinsic sense of guilt, which is not found in other peoples. And so even if they were dominated by other peoples, then they would still feel that they would feel bad and whatever. So I don't think it's just a problem with white people. I think it's a specifically Northern Europeans. It's not a problem with Eastern Europeans, really. It's a problem with Northern
in a way,
Europeans.
how like cultures will develop arts as a way to advertise their flamboyancy and morality and power. Like, I'm sure that you've probably said this a million times on your show, Ed, that kind of rich left-wing people will display their virtue and how guilty they are. The more guilt, I think, the more supreme they feel, because why would you feel guilty if you didn't feel that you were number 1?
Well, yeah, it's and I don't think they really do feel guilty. They're just a lot of them. They're just Machiavellian, signaling that they feel guilty. And I'll go on some of the things that have been sent in. So, God of Pig, King of Dog, £5. Thank you, sir. Says, Charlie, why do chocolate people, I don't know what that means, but anyway, get pushed to the top?
Okay, this is a very easy, this has come up again and again. Last time we chatted, and I had to mention this on my visit to Kendal in the Lake District when I was fancying pigeons and the breeding and the genetics of pigeons. So chocolatiers are about 12% of the economy of Switzerland, and without them, I just don't think we could, as a kind of like central alpine people, survive. And that's my answer, as it's always been.
Okay. Well, my answer would be because of guilt, virtue signaling, inversions of normal hierarchies, and whatever. But maybe I've misread the question. Joe Vlogs also says, Joe Vlogs, thank you, sir, says, keep up the great work, Charlie. Stand strong, GB.
Thank you very much. I'm loving these Charlie-themed questions. I'm feeling very honored that people have been enjoying the videos and been enjoying the challenging photon gathering conditions out there. But I like to say, though, that it's important. Like I love the challenge of gathering the photons of people that don't want them gathered. And I have looked into getting bodyguards. I've had a bodyguard for one day, but it's very expensive to get a trained.
Where were you? Where were you that you had to have a bodyguard, Charlie?
Oh, at the peak, when the pro-Hamas rallies, pro-Palestinian rallies intensified to their zenith, I took a licensed close protection officer who was a trained bodyguard. He was same height as me, 3 times the size, and he was a man mountain. And I gave him the kind of brief beforehand and explained that you don't intervene unless, like, you know, myself is in danger. Let the lefties, let the commies, let the kind of pro-Hamas guys get right in the camera, let them interact with me, but only step in if it gets too much. And he did his very presence stopped them attacking me, because he would have just picked them up and just cracked them, you know, just snapped them at the spine.
I forgot. We have a resident poet here at the Jolly Heretic, and he has sent in the following. We can learn from the old KGB as they deal with today's detainee. 80 volts to his knackers stops further attackers, and the bill will be cheaper, you see. Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. And if you would like to buy Mr. Quinn's book of Jolly Heretic Poetry, then it is, of course, available on Amazon. And he also has a YouTube channel. Oh, and he also writes, because I had this idea that it would be good to have a Finnish fish and chip shop. For now, we must pity those Finns. They've no fish and chips for their sins. It sounds like a failure from here to... It sounds like a failure from here to Karelia. Batter would surely cause grins. Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. Again, we appreciate most violently your poetry here. I like particularly the Karelia rhyme, failure, Karelia. That's very Gilbert and Sullivan, isn't it? To change the nature of the
What is Karelia? What is Karelia?
Karelia is an area of eastern Finland / Western Russia. They speak a different language there. They speak Karelian, or they used to, and the Finnish national epic Kalevala comes out of folk songs and whatever, and poetry that was gathered in Karelia. So it's the sort of unspoiled east of Finland. Right. The next question comes from Jez Bass, and he says, "Will King Charles use war to regain popularity? Thanks." That's a very interesting question, sir. Maybe you're confusing our current King Charles with King Charles I. It may be that King Charles I used war to regain popularity. Maybe even King Charles II. I don't know. I don't remember what wars were knocking about when he was king. There must have been some used war, but they were absolute monarchs or semi-absolute monarchs, whereas King Charles III has no political power whatsoever, really. So I don't think he's going to be using war to regain popularity. And I don't think he is that unpopular, really.
Although, you know, like, whilst we could turn our zombie city walls into army barracks, and all these migrants who have come to the West for a better life can be the shock troops that we send in like big human waves against the Chinese, defend Ukraine as well. Like, you know, as we discussed before, like, gain your citizenship by surviving the meat grinder of China. Maybe send a few into the India-Pakistan war as well. You know, like, these people could be very useful in like huge numbers, you know, like mass human waves.
What I don't understand is, why is it that they say that it's so terrible for women in these countries and they get discriminated against and there's no women's rights and stuff, but yet they don't come here for a better life? It's only the men in a patriarchal society where men are in charge and men can get jobs easily and whatever, that come here for a better life. I don't understand that. And they don't come here for a better life anyway, because they're genuine refugees. So they're fleeing persecution. Again, why is it that the women don't get persecuted, but the men get persecuted? I mean, the first thing that happens if a country invades or whatever is that all the women get raped. So I don't. It just doesn't follow for me. It doesn't. It's all young men.
Very, very strange. And and also there must be a kind of a genetic drain, so that all the kind of like Chad, Arab, and African men who can scrimp together $5,000 to pay the human traffickers, that can organize the logistics of a kind of like 50-day journey to England, paying human traffickers, surviving, evading the police, evading robbers. Those are maybe the best genetic people. So left behind in Africa and the Arab world are all the kind of like betas and all the kind of spiteful mutants who will have all the women to themselves.
And that's what happened to Scandinavia. All of the well-R, double-R bastards, they made their way to England and Scotland and Ireland and Normandy and wherever. And all that was left behind was these weak people, and thus you get the Nordic welfare state.
Wow, it's true. All the Vikings went south, didn't they, to England and Normandy?
Yeah, in search of booty and birds, and
adventure.
So feeble, and bloodlust, and all these feeble beta cucks were left behind, and maybe that's why Sweden is just so bloody awful these days.
Let me ask you, Ed, if you were a young virile Sudanese man, and you were, say, above average IQ for a Sudanese man, and you had the opportunity, and you put together a bit of money, would you migrate to England and enjoy the benefits?
Yeah, I get the impression that it's not very nice living in Sudan, unless you're fantastically rich. So if you're fantastically rich, you can do what you like. But if you're not fantastically rich, it's rubbish. It's not a good place to live, and particularly in North Sudan, because there's war there at the moment. So it's a particularly awful place to live. I've been working with these Sudanese colleagues at the University of Khartoum on a paper that we're doing on intelligence in Sudan, and we can't get hold of them because of the war. We can't. There's no telephone lines. There's no internet. Nothing. So I need to say to them, I need a bit more detail on how you collected the data that we're analyzing, whatever. And we can't get hold of them.
Have they rebranded Darfur? What's the latest name for the ongoing saga in Sudan? What's going on?
No, it's a civil war. It's not Darfur now. It's between the Arabized elites for control of Sudan. But then other things have happened, like the Israel war and whatever, and so no one wants to talk about Sudan anymore. But there is a war happening in Sudan, and people are being killed, but it's not being reported in the newspapers at all. So nobody cares. Nobody's interested in what's happening in Sudan. So poor old Sudan. It's a really rubbish place to live. It is. And South Sudan is worse than North Sudan. Right, the next question comes from Joe, and he says, if the ecology in Europe becomes harsh again and non-native ethnic groups are put under harsh selection pressures like our ancestors were, how will this affect Asians, Africans, etc. differently? Very interesting question. So if we return to harsh Darwinian conditions, then presumably there would be, you have to be able to deal with the cold. And so Northeast Asians are strongly adapted to deal with the cold. And the reason why they have this sort of yellowy skin is because they have a ketamine in the skin. They have basically this layer of fat under the skin, which causes them to be adapted to the cold. And if you look at their body shape, they are highly endomorphic, i.e. they have short legs, short arms, big bodies. That's about keeping heat in. That's what that does. And so I think that they would be quite good at surviving in a cold, harsh ecology, and also would militate in favor of planning and competition and whatever, and they're highly intelligent. So I think they would do well. Other people would have problems if it was cold, other people, because they would have very dark skin, and they wouldn't be able to absorb sunlight from in the winter and synthesize it into vitamin D, and keeping themselves healthy. And their bodies would literally be built to release heat, not to hold it in, to keep them cool. So this would be a bad thing. And so they would, rather than put fat on their stomach where it would act as a blanket in the cold, they would put it on their buttocks where it would be completely useless. So they would be in trouble. In fact, there was a study which indicated that Somali women living in Finland, Finnish people take vitamin D supplements in the winter, and Somali women living in Finland have to take double the supplement which Finns take in order to remain healthy, because they can't absorb sunlight through the skin because it's dark. So they would be in trouble. In the same way that you get this, there's a lot of problems with skin cancer among white people in certain parts of America and certain parts of Australia, because they're absolutely not adapted to the sun, and so they get skin cancer. But blacks in America, of course, they don't get skin cancer because they are adapted to deal with it being in the southern states. So the life expectancy for a while, as I read, for blacks in the southern states was actually higher than for whites, even though blacks were slaves. And the reason for that was things like skin cancer. So, if we return to harsh conditions, then if you're not adapted to those conditions, then, you're in trouble. That's it. We would select in favor of, ginger people who would be strongly adapted to it being cold and wet and whatever, and we would select against people that were dark, and that's just how it is. By the way, we have somebody watching called Nick Rule. Are you the same Nick Rule that did the brilliant study on the Mormon glow and on how Mormons have qualitatively different skin from non-Mormons, and that's how you can tell that they're Mormons? Is that you? Because if so, I enjoyed your study, Professor Rule. It was a small sample size and whatever, but it was very interesting. They tried to work out. They put different faces, and they could just tell that the Mormons were Mormons. Why? I don't know. They just could, and they worked out. They removed the eyes. It wasn't the eyes. They removed the nose. It was the skin, and it was something to do with the quality and the healthiness of the skin. The Mormon glow is what they called it. That they don't drink alcohol, they don't drink coffee, and they're just genetically healthy. So that was it. So if that's you, Dr. Rule, then I'm honoured to have you here at the Jolly Heretic. Okay, you could always spot a Mormon, says Dave Britton. Well, yeah, I mean, but not if they're on a mission, yeah, because they've got the badge, haven't they? And the sort of suit and tie, but if not otherwise, we just want to say the ethnic. That is correct. People don't know that it's the most ethnically English place in America is Utah, because there was a point where there were more Mormons in Britain than there were in America, and then Brigham Young, the second prophet, told them to come to Utah, and then they all did. So it's very interesting. Have you been to Utah, Charlie?
I've not, no, but I was looking. There was some meme I saw talking about how Idaho and Utah are extremely decent places to live right now, and they were saying Idaho's famous for its potatoes, and Utah is famous for its Mormons and polygamy. So yeah, there you go.
There's also a lot of Mormons in Idaho.
Oh, are there?
Yeah, because it's next to Utah, so it sort of spills over. Well, the thing is, they're just such nice people. So if you go, it's just everything's really nice and clean, and everyone's kind and lovely, and it's homogenous, and everyone's English basically. But
yeah, like I've never met a Mormon I didn't like, and like Kings of Leon, the band that everyone likes, they're Mormons, and they're kind of like an organization that I'd like to have as neighbors, but I don't think I could be bothered to keep up with all the.
No, I don't want to be one, because I like coffee. I like coffee. I like tea. And I like booze. But yeah. I'm happy to be surrounded by them. I'm happy for everybody else. Everybody else can be Mormon, and that's good. That's fine by me. But I wouldn't want to be one, because, as I said, I'd have to give up those three pleasures. Also, their church services are very boring, and I see no reason why I should have pagan symbols on my underpants.
No, that's the thing. Like, I enjoy my booze. I enjoy my coffee. Like, I just don't know how a Mormon man, knowing all the kind of existential issues we all have with like the kind of craziness and absurdity of life, how do they just sit in a boring service for 2 hours a day, and that's their bottle of wine, is it?
No. Their bottle of wine is desserts.
Is it?
Yeah, Mormons are really into desserts. Like they meet up and they have because they can't have anything hot. They can't have like hot chocolate. I think they can, I don't know if they can have hot chocolate. I can't remember. But it does say boiling liquid in the Doctrine and Covenants. It says boiling liquids. And Brigham Young got around this by saying he never allows it to. Mormons drink Mountain Dew. Yeah, they do. Mormons are very into their soft drinks and their desserts. And they'll do interesting things with their soft drinks. Like I have a friend, American Mormon living in Olu, and he asks for he wants he calls it a poorly, half and half, which is that he goes half Coca-Cola and half Fanta mixed in.
Oh my God!
They do like
so they just get high on sugar. They get high on glucose. That's their thing.
That's what people used to do when we first discovered, as it were, or whatever, sugar in the 16th century. Before that, all they did was honey. And they bring back sugar to England or whatever. That's exactly. People would go to parties. Remember, they used to drink all the time. The drinking was nothing, and they would get absolutely high on sugar, like absolute sugar rushes on this in the 16th, late 16th century, Elizabethan England. Yeah. Okay. The next question comes from Joe. Thank you, sir. He says, "Can you interview Harrison Pitt from the New Culture Forum?" I doubt it. I get the impression the New Culture Forum are a bit purple pilled. A bit Peterson pilled for me, to the extent that I was supposed to go on there and then they cancelled. But I'm being laundered. I mean, I've been on the Lotus Eaters now, for God's sake. So perhaps at some point, who can tell? The next question comes from Craig Warby, and he says, "Can I be a mod?" He says to you, Charlie. "Can I be a mod just so I can wear it as a badge of honor?"
Like a mod on my comment section. Well, I'll think about it because I've never had a mod. I like to be a lone wolf in everything I do. So let me think about it. Bringing another man onto the team, it's a very big decision. I'd need to maybe sleep on it and go through the numbers a bit there.
Okay. Next question says, I can't remember who this is from, but they say, "Hello, Mr. Dutton. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on why so many women are now suddenly becoming paedophiles, i.e. female teachers seducing young boys they teach, babysitters, etc. Is it just reporting bias, or is there a genetic component happening over the last few decades? I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this topic in the future. Quick pint. Keep up the good work and all the best." Thank you, sir. I think the answer is one, women are more and more in an evolutionary mismatch of a situation where they are with young boys who are 16 or whatever, and they're teaching them. That wouldn't happen in the old days. At my dad's school, whatever, all the teachers were men, and if it was a girls' school, but all the teachers are women, and that's now changed. So they're just more exposed to them. B, the standard of, as I look at in my book, The Naked Classroom, I actually look at this in my book, The Naked Classroom. B, the standard of people going into teaching is just lower and lower and lower. They're less intelligent than they used to be. They're less pro-social than they used to be. They're more likely to do things like that. And C, yeah, it's increasingly socially unacceptable, so it gets reported. It doesn't get covered up. Whereas when it happened at my school, and there's 2 cases of it at my school. It was a teacher, in both cases, shagging a different Year 11 boy. It was just quietly covered up, and the teacher was asked to leave at the end of the year and just got on with her job. Whereas now it's serious, it's taken seriously, and it's a criminal offence to have sex with a person who is who is at the school that you teach at, even if they are 16, even if they are full.
Well, yeah, I think the changing social mores, I think, is probably the biggest one, Ed, because in the past, I'm sure like 16-year-old Bradley, he'd say, "Hey, Dad, I shagged the drama teacher," and the dad would be like, "There, that's my boy. Let's have a beer." Whereas now the dad phones the police, so it's a change of attitude.
Yeah, the dad was like, "Respect, well done, well done, lad."
Yeah, somebody else. Like, "My God, like we didn't have any hot teachers when I was a kid. You lucky little shit."
Yeah, right. Somebody else has said there was an article written in the New York Post, 17th of March. Read the study in Finland finds that left-wing woke people have worse mental health than normies and right-wing people. Some naughty ideas penetrating the mainstream, perhaps. Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think it's basically undeniable now. I mean, the evidence is a mountain. And I'm going to write a new paper on this tomorrow, actually, with some new data, that left-wing people, compared to right-wing people, are mentally ill. And that's why they're left-wing. And it makes sense because they're the agents of change. They're not happy with life. They can't just sit and grill and be content. They get terribly upset. Life's not good enough. It's not fair. They're like perpetual teenagers. So yeah, that's I think that's a fair enough point. Okay, good. Right. Well, I think I'm gonna wind up now, chaps. So we're gonna be back our next. So do subscribe, as I cannot emphasize enough. Subscribe here on Jolly Heretic and subscribe on Charlie's channel, Charlie Veach. And all of the information is in the description. I'm now going to take this down and hopefully put it on Odyssey, and it will also go on Charlie's channel. So it'll be on Charlie's channel. So if that's where it goes now. So I'll see you next week, chaps, and we will see you all soon. And keep fighting the good fight. And goodbye.